Welcome to another TikTok live stream. It is Wednesday, June 17th, 2026. I am an Ayn Rand fan, and I promote Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism, a philosophy of reason, egoism, and capitalism. And I invite you to participate. You can request up to discuss any of my views, which are listed on the background. I created a separate account so I can watch how the stream goes on my phone at the same time as I'm live streaming. Just so I can see how the user experience is. Play CS2, says someone in the chat. Not sure what that is. Video game. Perhaps. I'm not a video game player. At least not right now. So I'm looking at the screen on my iPhone, and it looks like the top words are cut off. It says request to debate, but the way my iPhone is structured, I can't see all of the letters. Maybe you have a different phone set up and you can see them. But at least most of the words you can see. What's good about Ayn Rand? Says someone. I think she came up with a great philosophy. Objectivism. I think it makes a lot of sense. Have you ever read Ayn Rand? She wrote fiction and nonfiction. And a lot of people, they've heard about her, but they haven't read her. I think there's a lot of smears and misrepresentations of Ayn Rand's philosophy. So I think it's really important to read her for yourself to make up your mind. What up, Goat, says Lit. Hello. Why is capitalism good? Because I think freedom is good, and capitalism is the system of freedom, as I understand it. Lots of people support freedom, but not capitalism, or at least they say that freedom is good. But I think if you really understand what freedom is, it means there will be no taxes and regulations. But most people support taxes and regulations. So I think most people don't support freedom, at least not consistently. Why is faith bad? Because faith means believing things without evidence. At least that's one sense of faith. Take it on faith. That means even if you don't have proof, even if you don't have evidence, you believe it anyways, like the Trinity. And it's only good to believe something if you have evidence for it. Israel, I think that's good, at least relative to its surrounding countries. I think there are many dictatorships in that area of the world, and relative to those countries, Israel supports freedom and rights. Not perfectly. I don't think any country is perfectly free, but at least relatively speaking, I think it respects rights. So for that reason, I wanted to show it some support by putting it in the good category, especially since it gets attacked a lot. It gets smeared a lot, I think. What is your definition of collectivism? I think I know, but I want to be sure. Regarding a collective as the supreme value, as opposed to the individual. I'm an individualist, not a collectivist. I think the individual is the highest value for him or herself. But collectivism says, no, the individual is not the highest value. The collective, or some group, the nation, the state, the race, the tribe, something other than the individual is the highest value. Somebody is requesting to join. I see maybe I should change my background to a different color, because the text shows up as white on a white background and it makes it hard to read, at least on my iPhone. But if I look at my live stream studio, it's white on black, so that's easier. But for you all, I'm not sure. It's black text. Oh, okay. Maybe you've got a different setup there. Oh, another. Okay, well, good. I'm glad. Maybe I can somehow switch mine to black text. Maybe there's a setting I can change. But anyways, I'm glad it shows up as black for you. All right, I got 2 people in the guest request list now. Maybe I should take one of those. Let me try to bring up a caller. We've got YH and Kratos Time. And sometimes I like to know something about these people before I take the call, but I'm not sure if I should try to screen it. Maybe I should just take the call. All right, if you're spamming stuff in the chat and you're just repeatedly saying the same thing, you might get blocked or timed out, muted. So I've seen Orange Man Bad, well, I guess only twice. But if you just repeatedly type the same thing in the chat, you run the risk of getting blocked or muted. Now, I don't know if any of my mods are here right now. Last live stream is the first time I had mods. I'm pretty new to TikTok live stream, so I'm still finding my way around here. And when I take a call, it's hard for me to simultaneously focus on the caller and keep an eye on the chat. But I need to keep an eye on the chat because my live stream got flagged for hate speech last time I did a live stream. And it wasn't because of something I said. It must have been because of things people were saying in the chat. So I don't want my stream to get flagged. So I'm a little reluctant to take a call without any mods here. Let me see if I have any mods in my list. If I don't have any mods, maybe I can still take a call, but I will have to, I can't be 100% focused on it. I'm going to have to look back at the chat every once in a while. Someone says chat doesn't affect it. Odds are it is the caller. No, I got flagged last time before I even had any callers. And I did a Google search and it says that the chat can trigger a flag. And I think that makes sense. And can you turn off the chat? I don't know. I don't want to turn off the chat. Oh, Mariella is here. She says, do you need mods? Yes, I do need mods. Would you like to be a mod? I don't know anyone really well here in TikTok I haven't met TikTok people in real life, so I only know people a little bit. But if I recognize you, Mariella, okay, I can make you a mod because I've had a little bit of interaction with you. So yeah, let me make you a mod. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then you can help make sure my stream doesn't get flagged. That happened last time. I don't know if you were here for that. My stream got flagged for hate speech. So it must have been because of something someone said, something that somebody said in the chat. Okay. Add moderator. All right, so I'm giving you the power to mute and block. So if you see anything that looks like it might get my page flagged, then please mute or block the person, or at least give a warning. Okay. Thank you. All right, I've now made Mariella a mod. So now I will try to take one of these callers. So now we've got YH is still there. He's been there the longest. Let me just quickly look at your page. I don't see any content on it. All right, but I guess I'll give you a try. Okay, here we go. First call of the day. YH. No sound detected. Hello?
Hello?
All right, I hear you. Welcome.
Howdy. You do this for a living? Do you have a YouTube channel?
I do have a YouTube channel. Dan Norton 1 is my handle on YouTube.
No kid, are you a professional, I don't know what, entertainer, debater sort of a guy?
Maybe you could call me that. I'm a philosopher. I went to grad school in philosophy, and I am now on social media on various platforms. I recently started on TikTok, but I've been on YouTube for many years, and I'm trying to grow
Gotcha.
my audience and make money at it so that I can do it full time.
Yeah. Monetizing yeah. I keep wondering about that. It seems like a really interesting pathway to go down, but it seems like it takes an awfully long time for it to become profitable. You have to be very consistent, as far as I've understood it.
Well, I think it varies. Some people, I guess, they can make money at it very soon. Other people, it takes much longer. So it just depends on a variety of factors, I guess.
Hmm. It's mostly politics and things like that. Is that what you like talking about?
That's one thing I like talking about. Ethics as well, philosophy in general. So that includes metaphysics and epistemology, theory of knowledge.
I
So,
can never remember all those words: ontology and teleology, and I think it's. I started reading about Nietzsche and Heidegger and Plato, and oh my God, it's a lot of fun, but my head spins. My head spins. Yeah. Yeah.
well, I think maybe some of those would make my head spin too. I'm a big fan of Ayn Rand. She's my favorite philosopher and the one who I've learned the most from. Thanks for sharing the
Why?
live, by the way. I think somebody shared
Why?
that.
Why, why are so many people attracted to her? She's Atlas Shrugged and something about capitalism and Milton Friedman. I'm associating all that stuff with her.
Well, why are so many people attracted to her? I think her ideas make a lot of sense. That's why I'm attracted to her. But a lot of people, she's a very controversial figure. Many people attack her and I think smear her.
Hmm.
They misrepresent her ideas. But I think it's, if you actually read her works, I think they make a lot of sense. So um, I love her
And she,
ideas and I want to help promote them. That's what I do here.
Gotcha. And she's disliked by the left and liked by the right. Is that it, or is it backwards?
Well, it depends what you mean by the right. I don't think she's liked by what's often called the right today, like
Hmm.
people in Trump's camp. I'm
Hmm.
very opposed to Trump, and I have him listed on my background as someone in the bad category. I don't think he is a friend of freedom by any means. I don't think he cares about the truth, and he'll lie. Uh,
Why do I think of
to,
free market economics in Ayn Rand? I'm trying to remember the little I know about her. Something about free market economics and Milton Friedman or something?
yeah, she's in favor of free markets, where so the government is restricted in its role to protecting people from force, which basically means there's only three things the government should do. It should have a police, a military, and a court system. And everything else it does today, like Social Security, Medicare, public education, public roads, all these regulatory agencies like the FDA, SEC, FAA, none of that would exist in a free market because those are all
Ah,
government interventions and violations of people's rights. They coerce
gotcha.
people, like taxes and
Right.
regulations. They involve coercing people. You're not
Ah.
free to
So
do what
so
you want with your own money. You're
is
forced to
this
give
the
it to the government.
An cap? Is that what you call it? Um, I don't know. Radical economic freedom, individualism, classical liberalism, this sort of thing. Is that her?
Well, not ANCAP. I don't. So anarcho capitalism. She was opposed to anarchy, and I have anarchy listed on my backgrounds. She was in favor of government, but she thought government should be limited in its scope, as I was just saying, to
Right.
the police, military, and courts. But there should be a government. So I don't think anarcho capitalism is actually a thing. I think it's a contradiction in terms. I
It
think
sounds like it, doesn't it?
well, I think so. Because I think capitalism requires a government. If capitalism is the system is freedom, which I think it is, then I think for that to have freedom, you need to have a government to protect people's rights.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I have plenty of time on my own because I paint houses and things like that, so I can listen to people. I never went to college, but I'm just listening and trying to understand people's ideas. And I don't know, I'll listen to a theist one day and an atheist another, or a communist one day and a fascist another, or whatever, and just try to understand what the heck these people are thinking. And I mean, I think it's pretty interesting. I think I'd like to talk with you, if you wanted, about collectivism and what you think of that. And fundamentally, what you think man's real nature is, whether you do agree more with maybe Thomas Hobbes or Jean-Jacques Rousseau. And if you'd agree with me that in modernity, most people are Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and that maybe Francis Fukuyama, end of history sort of thing, and very few people are Thomas Hobbes or Samuel Huntington, Clash of Civilizations, but it's becoming more. Multipolar world, so on and so on. What do you think?
Well, I wouldn't align myself with Hobbes or Rousseau. I would more align myself with John Locke. Um, I don't agree with everything he said, but certainly more so than Rousseau or Hobbes. But you were asking about like what most, or you were mentioning what most people believe. I think not necessarily what I believe. Or maybe you were asking partly about that because you mentioned collectivism and what my take is on that. So I'm an
Yes.
individualist, and I think the individual is the highest value, and he or she can join a group or some collective, but the point of joining a group should be because it serves your own interest, your own self-interest. Now, so if if you're a Jew, I don't think it serves your interest to live in a society like Nazi Germany. So that's not a collective that would be good for you. But if you live in a more rights respecting country, then I think that would be good for you. So that's not a collective that would be good for you. But if you live in a more rights respecting country, then I think that would be good for you. But if you live in a more rights respecting country, then I think that would be good for you. But if you live in a more rights respecting country, then I think that would be good for you. But if you live in a more rights respecting like Israel or the United States, I think that could be a good collective or group to join. But the reason to join the collective is not because the collective is somehow better or more important than you. It's because it best serves your interests as an individual.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think most people probably feel that way. Like I said, I just listen to all sorts of people. I've run across a guy. I mean, you'd be amazed. I never knew there were such people out there. But he's a monarchist. He runs a podcast called The Orthodox Nationalist. He's a historian, I think, Matthew Ruffield Johnson, PhD. And so this guy thinks the entire opposite of that. So he thinks that there's only two types of government in all of human history, oligarchy and monarchy, and that the individual is a myth of modernity. He doesn't actually exist more than he does as a collective because he inherits his language, his culture, his even perception of reality from the language, his genes, so on and so on and so on, and that the individual must be subservient to the collective because the individual depends on the collective for his survival, so the collective must come first. And this is his point of view, and I just thought it was so radical that it was fascinating. I wonder what you would think of that in the context of history as it's unfolding, as we're becoming more individualistic, and maybe some people are afraid returning to collective, tribal world. Yeah.
Well, one point is that a collective is made up of individuals. So I don't think the collective can survive on its own apart from individuals. You said the individual depends on the collective, but you could look at it another way and say the collective depends on the individuals because it's just made up of individuals. If there are no individuals, there are no collectives. But there could be an individual on his own apart from a collective. Like if you imagine Robinson Crusoe or some solitary person just by himself on an island, that person could survive on his own. It might be difficult, but he could do it at least for a while. Now, I think survival can be much easier if you do have someone else to work with. If you had other people on the island who could specialize in various tasks, like one person could be good at fishing, and another person could be good at building shelter. Another person might be good at creating clothing. So when you have more people, you can do better than any person could do on his own if he had to produce everything he needs on his own. But other people, like depending on the nature of the people, they might be bad for you. Like if you have someone who doesn't want to work and produce, if maybe someone just wants to be a parasite and mooch off of others, or be a criminal and steal other people's stuff, then well, it's not going to be good for you to have a person like that on the island. So other people can be very helpful to you, but only certain other people, not just any other people. And if they become criminals, then I think it's good to get those people out of society and put them in jails because they disrupt other people's ability to live.
Sure, sure. But I think it would be argued from the other side that, um, well, I think the most interesting question is what is the fundamental nature of man, if he has one? And I think most people today instinctively feel that he does not, that he can be manipulated into whatever we would like him to be, like maybe new Soviet man or multicultural, pluralistic, atomized consumer with, I don't know, your identity is your clothing or your sports car or something. But it would be argued from the other point of view that the fundamental nature of man must be collective because he's a Homo sapiens sapien pack animal primate species. They exist in groups, and you never find them all by themselves. If you do, they're just about to pass on. They exist collectively, and so this must be the first order of business: is viewing the world through the aperture of a collective instead of an individual. I mean, this is contrary to everything. This is blasphemy to the modern mind. But I just thought it was an interesting perspective.
Well, I think you could say that human beings are social animals, and Aristotle said this in his work, The Politics, I believe. Man is a social animal. And I think that's right in the sense that we survive best and we flourish when we do have other people around. But I do think that um, the fundamental value is ourselves. And the reason, when I say we flourish, I mean an individual flourishes best when he has other people around of a certain type, um, who might be friends or um, people he can trade with, romantic partners, but not criminals, robbers, rapists, murderers. So the fact that human beings thrive best when they're in a social context of a certain context, like Jews in Nazi Germany, that's not a good social context to be in. But the fact that we thrive best when we're in a good social environment, I don't think that means collectivism is true. I just think that means we need only certain systems, political systems, are compatible with an individual's flourishing. But the point of joining some collective is to help yourself flourish as an individual. At least that's how I see it. So I think I'm best off in a society where my rights are respected. I think that's most conducive to my happiness. But that doesn't mean I'm a collectivist, because I don't want to live on my own in the woods.
Mm.
Because my reason for joining a society is not because it helps the society, it's because it helps myself. So it's an egoistic motivation. And I think if that's your motive, and I think that's a proper motive for joining a society, then I think that's an individualist perspective, because you're making the
Right.
individual the highest concern and value.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And then along the same track of individualism. I mean, was it Aristotle you were speaking of before? What did he say? Was it him? Uh, the one who lives alone, he's either an animal or a god. Something like that. But I think of it and you wonder what the best way what is the most conducive to humanity, to human nature, as far as things go. And you'll have these people I love called primitivists. You ever hear of them? I actually agree with these guys, but they're the ones, I don't know, Maoist or something maybe? Hey, everybody should go back and live in little primitive tribes. We never should have gotten out of the Stone Age. It was all a mistake. The agricultural revolution, horrible, ruined everything. Something like that. As I've really tried to answer this question, Dan, I would watch hours of whatever footage you can find of Stone Age hunter-gatherer people that still exist, and you try to pick apart, okay, well, what's the same in between all of us? What travels through time and culture and space and makes us us? And what is it really, And I think that's why I feel more attracted to the collective. I really thought about that for a long time, and the image that sticks out in my head is one of an old lady. There's an old lady sitting in a little hammock in the Amazon, and there's she's blind, and she's got a little monkey with her, and her granddaughter is softly stroking her hair, combing her hair, and everyone else is out hunting, and they come and they feed her. I mean, I think that's, this collective thing is so much better, I think, this idea. You think of all the epidemic of the poor old Japanese people by their hundreds passing away alone in their apartments, and it's a whole industry to go clean and out these things. No one's noticed that they've passed on, and all of that. What do you think?
Well, I don't think taking care of someone like this grandmother you mentioned is a collectivist thing to do. I think it's consistent with individualism that you would take care of someone else. But the reason to do it is because they matter to you. So, like, if you love your grandmother, then it's in your own interest, your self-interest, to see her doing well. And it hurts you if she's not doing well. So I think egoism and individualism is compatible with caring for other people. at least on Ayn Rand's view of egoism, the which sometimes she calls rational egoism, which is different than the conventional notion of egoism in the culture, like, or the stereotype of egoism. Many people think if you're an egoist, you don't give a damn about other people, you only care about yourself, and you're a rude jerk to other people, you don't care about other people's
Self.
rights. But I think, or you might even rob, rape, murder people. But I think that way of acting is actually self-destructive. It's not in your self-interest to be at war with other people.
Mm.
I think you're going to live a much better, happier life yourself if you can live in harmony with other people and have
Right, yeah.
good relationships with them, loving relationships, good
Well,
friendships.
I mean, and that goes to empathy, human empathy. Oh, by the way, I downloaded this app a couple of months ago. It turns out there's all kinds of weird rules, like that, like the word you just used for assaulting women. You know, if you say that, apparently it flags your thing. The AI algorithm, it flags your thing and gives you a content strike or something. As far as I've understood, people just say
Yes.
grape instead.
Yeah, sometimes
So
people say grape to get around with that. I haven't noticed any issues with that so
I don't
far,
know.
but if I
I don't
do,
know.
maybe I'll start doing that, or maybe just as a precaution, even if I don't
Yeah.
notice any
But
problems, I will
like,
start
like
doing
the,
it.
but the empathy thing, I was thinking, and it burned a hole in my brain, Dan. I saw this was Ross Kemp. He's a documentarian. He was in South Africa. He's got a documentary series called Extreme World, Ross Kemp Extreme World, and he's in South Africa talking with these three fellas, and these guys, their hobby was to what that word we just said that
Mm.
TikTok might get nervous about. They do that to women as a hobby. See, and he's talking with these fellas, and there's never I don't know what's so unique about it. I think we base our point of view of humanity and society on the idea that we all, like you were saying, we all have rational self interest. The golden rule we treat others as we want to be treated, and everyone has a basic level of empathy. But it turns out, no, they don't. They don't. Because these guys, they were doing that. The guy was interviewing. Well, why would you do that? That he was saying to them, don't you feel bothered? Aren't you guilty? Where's your conscience? Aren't you worried you would have damaged this woman psychologically in some irreparable way? On and on, asking this sort of a question. And they legitimately couldn't understand what the man was saying. They thought he was saying, aren't you worried that you would have gotten caught? Oh, well, we covered her mouth. We did this, we did that. They legitimate. It wasn't haughtiness or defensiveness. They legitimate. They couldn't understand that guy. And to think that state of affairs could exist seems to fly in the face of everything that we're basing our societies on now.
Well, I think not getting caught isn't the only or even the most important thing to consider, like whether you'll get caught. Even if you don't get caught by someone else, like the police, you still know in your own mind that you did it. And I think you can't really respect yourself or have self esteem if you know in your own mind that you're a jerk or worse, a rapist. So you have to look yourself
We
in the
hope.
mirror. You have to live with yourself. You're the one who has to try to sleep at night. And I think that can be difficult if you don't live up to standards in your own mind of what is
Mm.
good, regardless of whether or not you get caught by some authority. So
Um,
I
it,
wouldn't think that these people are psychologically healthy. I would imagine they.
no, that's the point. That's exactly. That's what we would hope. That these are because it feels much better if it's like a single guy, Ted Bundy or some weirdo. Well, all right. People are crazy all the time. They think they're rutabagas or Cleopatra or Joan of Arc or whatever. It's just some nuts, some crazy guy. But no, this is a collective of people that, in all other respects, are perfectly healthy, perfectly mentally healthy, but they feel no pang of conscience that we are betting that everyone has. So that I mean, I think that's why it bothered me so much, Dan, is because I've realized that just ain't so. That just ain't so, and it's nothing to build a society on.
Well, there are. So I'm wondering if these people are just dead in a sense psychologically.
Mm.
They've become so corrupted in their own mind that they have no compunction or guilt about what they do. But if that's the case, then I think that that itself is a kind of psychological problem. So even if they're not experiencing anguish and tortured by guilt, if they just have a kind of psychological deadness about them, maybe they
Mm.
as kind of zombie mindset where they don't feel much at all. And that's maybe if they have to get themselves into that state in order to go through with what they do, well, that itself is an unhealthy state to be in.
Yeah, and it's about human nature itself. You'd think that, but then trying to solve that puzzle, I think back to who? I don't know, Genghis Khan, the Vikings, anybody really. When you conquer the other band of people, and now you take their women and whatever, and you enslave the men and all. Somehow I think this enlightenment or Christian idea that everyone has this shared conscience, or oh, God has written the morality on your heart, sort of thing. I'm not so sure that's there. I'm not so sure it's there.
Well, I do think morality is something that needs to be induced like through experience. It's not something we get from God. You mentioned God writing morality on people's hearts.
Yeah,
um, I don't believe there is a God. I'm an atheist. But I
same.
also don't think that that means there's no way to get morality. Sometimes people think, well, without God there is no morality, anything goes. But I don't accept that view. I think you can derive morality from facts.
From the golden rule, you mean?
Well, I don't know about the golden rule. There might be some reasonableness to that. Certainly, much better than something like love your enemy, which Christianity says. I think that's a terrible, self-destructive
Terrible. What did Christopher
idea.
Hitchens say? You love your own enemies. I'll hate mine. Thank you very much. Yeah.
I think that's a very anti-self view, so I strongly oppose that. And
Well, what would Ayn Rand have to say about the whole thing?
about morality, like, or in general,
When
or love your enemy in particular.
that one, it was just on the tip of my tongue. The one where you were saying, crap. What about God? It was about the self interest. Isn't that her point of view? Everyone's as long as everybody's doing to their own self interest as much as possible, everything will turn out right because of the golden rule, sort of a thing.
Well, she doesn't mention the golden rule, at least not to my knowledge, but she does think that everyone should pursue their own interests. And there is a kind of reciprocity, you might say, in the idea of rights. You respect other people's rights and you expect them to respect your rights, which means you're not coercing other people. You're not initiating force against them. Like if I want something from you, then I have to persuade you. If I want your car, I can make you an offer. I can say, hey, for $5,000, will you sell me your car? But I can't just beat you up and take your keys and drive off with your car. Um, that's one
Mm.
example of what it means to respect other people's rights. It's to not initiate force against them or coerce them. And she thought people should treat each other in this kind of way, and that it was in people's interest, their self-interest. If people were not respecting rights, then um, it would just be a war of all against all, I guess, a state of anarchy. At least that's one possibility, and that's not good for anyone. I think no one would flourish in that kind of society. It's egoistic, self-interested for everyone to live in harmony with other people, and then we can all grow together and flourish together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You ever heard of something called the Dunbar number, Dan?
Dunbar number.
Dunbar number. It's in anthropology. I guess Dunbar invented it, but he just noticed that over a certain number of people, 100 something, I think, people can't. People split. Like they divide like a cell. And it might be the same people. It is the same people, same language, culture, religion, ethnicity. Huh. But over this number, since that's the limit of the people that you can interact with and know and understand and have a relationship with, they split. And then ultimately, they have a little conflict over who knows what, territory or resources or religion or who knows what, anything. But so I say make maybe for the communist or for someone trying to create a collective, a national collective, this becomes a big problem. If this really is some fundamental part of human nature, to try to create a grand identity or something like that. Out of because the nature of people is just to separate and split off into little tribes and things. Anyway, it's just an angle some people look at these sorts of things at.
Okay. Well, I'm wondering if I should take another caller or stick with this call. I mean, philosophy is
As you please, as you please. I'll listen
it's
in.
such a big topic, and I'm sure we could talk for hours and hours. But I wonder if maybe I should give some other people a chance to come up and get some more conversations in. So I think I'll do that. I'll bring someone else up, but I do appreciate your conversation. Thanks for calling in. Okay, I see we got 4 people now in the chat or in the request list. Let me take a quick look at the chat. I don't think host is reading comments. You might want to go up yourself and explain, says someone. I'm not really reading comments. I mean, I'll glance at the chat every once in a while, but like 99% of the chats I'm not reading when I'm on a call. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But if Mariella has something she needs to explain or wants to tell me, she's welcome to come up. I will. Thanks for sharing, by the way. We had a really good showing a couple live streams ago. Someone by the name of Ray Philosophy came on, and I think it was during my chat with her that I had 153 viewers. So I don't know if that's just because she was really popular, but anyway, if you all know how to increase the viewership, I'm definitely open to ideas. So if you all know someone like that who maybe has a big following, who would be interested, who might be interested in a debate, maybe you could let them know, tag them or something. All right, so I see Kay is here. Some people are saying invite Kay, and I've got a couple other people up. Let me take a look at Kay's channel. I can't click on it when from the guest list, but oh, Mariella says K. Okay. All right. Well, if my mod is also giving me a recommendation to take K, or maybe when she just means okay, maybe K is short for okay, or maybe she means K the person. Yes, him. Okay. All right. I guess I'll take a chance on K. I wish I knew a way to click the profile. All right. Well, I'm just going to take K now. Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Hey. So you're a K, right?
I am. That's me.
Okay. And I was going to click on your profile, but I don't see a way to do that. If you type something in the chat, then I know I can click on the three
Yeah,
dots.
let me type something real quick.
All right. There
Do
we
you see
go.
that?
Yeah. Let me just click on the
I
three
don't have any
dots.
posts or anything, but
What's that?
oh, I was just saying I don't have any posts or anything. I just have a bunch of reposts.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just went to your page and I see all it says is Monarch in the bio. And there's you have a YouTube channel, looks like.
I do. I do.
Okay. Online debater who enjoys philosophy. All right.
That's me.
So, what are you interested in discussing?
Yeah. So, I mean, first and foremost, I think there's one thing, at least, that you and I both agree with, which is that subjectivism is bad, right? That's like a really, just piss poor position. I think you and I both agree on that. But I do kind of have issues with just Randian objectivism in general. So I'm just gonna lay it out, and then you can just tell me like your opinion on the issues that I have. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, there's a lot of issues that I have specifically with the axiology and sort of the axiological interpretation that Rand has to offer. But one of the more pertinent issues that I see is that if you just take any definition of selfishness, that it's not actually going to be adequate for the sort of project, the ethical project that Rand wanted to embark on, right? Like, for example, if you take on a view of selfishness where it's not specified goals, but like nebulous goals, then Randian ethics wouldn't follow from such a view, right? So, for example, let's say you have some agents where they only had broader nebulous goals, right? And I'm just defining nebulous here to just be some goal which is going to be conceptually opaque. Okay, so it's not going to be the case that it's the agent has access to like the features about this goal, or they don't have any specified conditions about this goal, right? Like as an example, like let's say somebody said, I want to help humanity, right? This would be an example of like a vague nebulous goal, right? So it seems like, and from what I understand, Rand is actually arguing that values should not be this way, right? They shouldn't be in this kind of nebulous manner, that instead they should be things which kind of enter into this domain of rational deliberation, right? So it has to go through this kind of scrutiny, this rational discourse, and then that is going to be something which is then tied to these like objective facts about the conditions of what are required for you to actually live as a human being, right? So I guess my question for you is that how are you going to motivate the premise, for example, that like um in order for some agent to have some goal, and tell me if you agree or disagree with this, that they have to specify the conditions like for the goal, and then in turn act on that deliberative process. um and what would be specifically the issues that you have with like such an agent where they just had broad nebulous goals?
Okay. First, just so I know where you're coming from, can you let me know? Have you read Rand before, or have you just heard
Yeah.
about her like from other sources, secondary sources?
No, I've read it.
Okay. So you've read like her fiction and her nonfiction, or can you give me some idea of like the extent of what you read?
Not too much, just surface level.
Okay. Um, all right. So you've mentioned this idea of nebulous goals, and maybe you take that to be something that Ayn Rand is advocating. She advocates nebulous goals rather than.
No, no.
Okay.
So Rand actually thinks, I'll just give you this in an example. So I'm making the claim that Rand is arguing that values and goals should be things which are rationally deliberated upon, right? And that they have to be necessarily tied to the objective conditions for your flourishing, your individual flourishing. Okay. So, like, for example, if you had some agent who said that they wanted to be a good human being, um, Rand would say that that's a nebulous goal because there's no specificity, there's no translation into an actionable activity, right? And so she would not say that you should endorse nebulous goals. She's actually against that idea. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I think she might say that's an abstract goal, not necessarily nebulous. Like if you say, if one says, my
That's
goal
just what
is,
I mean by nebulous.
well, I'm not sure nebulous is the same as abstract. Nebulous, I think it often has this denotation or connotation of vague and poorly defined. There's something um, defective about it. But abstract, I don't think it carries that association. It just means it's not concrete. Now, I think it's right that if all you have is the goal, I want to do what's best for myself. I don't think that's sufficient to to implement that goal, I think you need to concretize that more and say, well, I to do what's best for myself, I have to find some career, for example, that I'm passionate about, whether that's being a philosopher or being a lawyer or a computer programmer. So you do have to give it more concrete implementation. But I wouldn't say the goal of just saying do what's good for yourself. I wouldn't say it's nebulous. I would just say it's abstract.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I'm not willing to really debate on the semantics there.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you this question. Do you think that that has to be the case for every legitimate goal?
That it be concrete and not abstract.
Yes.
Uh, I don't know if I would say like I think for every goal it has to be concrete. I don't think, just thinking off the top of my head here, I think there are contexts where it could be reasonable, at least temporarily, to have a goal that's just held in an abstract way. Like maybe if you're a student and you're deciding what to major in, you might think, well, I want to do something in the humanities. I know that's more appealing to me than the sciences. Now, eventually, you have to whittle it down, and you have to choose a specific major, whether it's history or philosophy or economics or something. But at least temporarily, I think while you're figuring things out, it could be sufficient to just hold it abstractly. And you don't know everything in advance. I think this is part of being um, a someone who learns from experience. We don't know everything in advance. That's part of what life is about. It's figuring out what goals are best for you, and you don't always know that in advance. So I don't think it's always necessarily a bad thing to hold a an abstract kind of value. It's just that if it stays at that level, then that could be a problem. At a certain point, you have to give it more concrete expression.
Okay, so how do you argue against the idea that some of the most important human values seem to be unspecifiable? So, for example, things like friendship, things like love, things like creation of art, the spiritual lives that people have, the fact that they're able to involve themselves in certain communities. These seem to be things which don't have sharp defined lines, but yet they seem to be extremely valuable aspects of reality and humanity as a whole. So, how do you contend with the idea that some of the most fundamental aspects of our values are actually unspecifiable?
Well, I don't think of those as unspecifiable. You mentioned friendship, love, being a part of a community. I'm not sure why you say those are unspecifiable. I mean,
Can you
I can,
specify? So, if I were to ask you, what's the longest friend that you've had?
um, I don't know. But we could just say for the sake of argument, let's say it's 10 years. I
Okay.
had a friendship that long.
So, can you
And
specify to me how much friendship you guys developed over those 10 years?
oh, I don't know. I'm not sure what you're looking for. Are you like ranking friendships in terms of how close? Like
I
this is
mean,
my best
whatever you
friend, this is my second best friend, and
like, whatever you had in mind when you said that, you seem to be assuming that it is something which can be specified. Like, whatever criteria you had in mind there, I'm just looking for you to sort of propagate that forward.
well, I mean, you can specify it in different ways. Like you could rank your friends and say this is my closest friend, and this other guy is a more distant friend.
But that
Uh,
wouldn't really be talking about the friendship. You would just be pointing out different friends, right?
um, I mean, I think it is saying something about the friendship, at least in a
I,
relative way.
I think it's saying a part about the friendship, just in the sense that this is part of your friends. But I don't think that tells us anything about the nature of friendship. How does it do that?
The nature of friendship. I mean, friends they talk with each other, they spend time with each other on shared values. They have shared things in common that they enjoy doing together, like watching sports or
Right. But again, like, notice how in each of your responses you said they, and then you left they unspecified, right? So you're just telling me essentially what these things that we're identifying as friends have and what they do with each other. But it's still an open-ended question about what does it mean to be friends in the first place?
sorry, are you asking for a definition of friendship?
I don't think that there is one. I don't think there's going to be any specified conditions for things like friendship, love, creation of art. That's my point.
Okay, you don't think there is a definition of friendship, love?
Not one that's going to be inclusive of everything that we want to call friendship.
Okay.
Like, I think you can attempt, and let me clear up what I'm saying here. I think you can sort of attempt to give definitions of what a friend is, but I think a lot of the definitions fail to counter examples and intuitive like reductios and whatnot. Like when you actually like think about the definition, most people when they define what a friend is, they're not actively deliberating over like the consequences of the definition. They just go with it because they don't care too much to rationally deliberate on the definition. But if you were to actually do that, you'll realize that a lot of the definitions fail.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get a feel for your overall view. I mean, is it your view that any definitions are impossible? Like you're against definitions completely, or is it more
Well,
restricted than that, or what?
no, I think you can define friendship ostensibly, which is kind of like what you were doing. And I think that's kind of like the most effective way to do so. But when I say that I don't think there's a definition, I'm saying I don't think there's any joint necessary and sufficient conditions such that if something were to satisfy these, it would be considered a friendship. I don't think you're going to be able to point to me something like an essential feature of all friendships, right? Because I think every single friendship is going to be different. It's going to be unique to the people who are friends with each other.
Okay. Well, I'm wondering now if this is even specific to Rand. It seems like maybe you have an
I can
objection
explain the
of
connection.
an epistemological sort to anyone who thinks that there are definitions of anything in terms of necessary and
Oh no, I
sufficient
don't.
conditions.
Yeah, I don't think that. So this is not something that I'm saying is an issue for like the broad majority of views, and I can explain how this especially ties to Rand. It's it's a pushback on the assumption that is made on the analysis of what is considered a genuine goal in the first place. Because if you recall, you said a moment ago that what counts as a genuine goal is when it's like specified and then it's translated into actionable events, right? Or actionable activity, let's just say. And so if you have some nebulous goal, like I want to help humanity, if you have some nebulous goal, like, I don't know, whatever, I want to be a doctor or something, without specifying like how exactly you're going to reach that goal, Rand is going to discard that and say you're essentially just you're substituting kind of feelings and emotions that you might have, but you're not actually talking about a value because what you're talking about has not been yet translated into something actionable. And so what I'm doing is pushing back on that assumption. And I'm saying, no, a lot of our most fundamental values, things like friendship, love, the art that we create in communities, the fact that we're involved in communities, are unspecifiable, right? Like those things are not going to have any specified, joint, necessary, and sufficient conditions, yet we find them to be extremely valuable. And so if that's the case, then either Rand is saying something which is incommensurate with the vast majority of just, human community, or there's like some motivation to accept her analysis as opposed to mine.
Okay. So we could look up a dictionary definition of friendship, and I don't think Rand had. Sometimes she did formulate her own definition of certain terms. I don't believe she did that in the case of friendship, but I also don't know that she would have any problem with just a regular definition of friendship in a dictionary. So I'm wondering, like if we looked up that and we just consider what that was.
I don't think that's going to be enough.
Okay, so you think there's no definition other than ostension, just pointing to examples that one could give of friendship. And
I'm not saying that it's like literally logically impossible or something. I'm saying that it's like highly unlikely that the concept of friendship is something which is sharply definable in terms of joint, necessary, and sufficient conditions, right? I think there's concepts that do have that feature. Like, for example, think about the concept of a bachelor, right? A bachelor has sharply defined joint necessary and sufficient terms, right? In order to be a bachelor, you must satisfy both being a man and being unmarried, right? You have to satisfy both of those things in order to be a bachelor. But when it comes to friendship, there are no such specified conditions, right? Yet we find extreme and intense value in that very thing, right? Which means that there's something either problematic with Rand's analysis, or her analysis is actually correct and there's some motivation for it. But if you think there is, then I'd just be interested to hear what that is.
Okay. I'm not ready to go to tie this all to Rand yet. I'm still getting the sense that you have some kind of objection that is not specific to Rand, and but let me explore this example and bounce it off you, see what you think. So, um, Rand gives this example in her book Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology of how definitions can evolve as we become aware of more things. Like, for example, a child as a toddler, its first definition, even if maybe it doesn't use explicit words for this, but if it put into explicit words the implicit operating definition it was working with of what a man is or what a human being is, it might say something like something that moves and makes sounds. That might be the first definition of a toddler for a human being, something that moves and makes sounds. But then maybe it observes some other things like cats and dogs, which also move and make sounds, and then it revises its definition, and now maybe its working definition is something that moves on two legs and has no feathers. And that way it's now defined its concept in a way that distinguishes it from cats and dogs, because it's got moves on two legs, and also from birds, since it's got a featherless biped. I think this is to make it a little more brief. A featherless biped, that's the new working definition of man. But then maybe later the child encounters gorillas and chimpanzees and monkeys, which also don't have feathers, but they do move around on two legs. So featherless biped no longer suffices as a definition, so you revise the definition again, and maybe eventually you get to something like Aristotle's definition, the rational animal, because the monkeys, they don't have reason, at least not in the way that human beings do. Like, we can invent technology using our amazing rational capacity, so we can invent the internet and computers like we're using right now. A monkey can't do that, right? So now the distinguishing characteristic is rationality. So as your context evolves and you become aware of more things, your definition evolves along with that context.
Yeah, that's fine. I can, yeah, that's fine. I'm willing to grant you the idea that like definitions change over time. There's really two ideas that I'm trying to propagate here, right? So the first idea is that you can actually have a goal which is valuable, but yet vague at the same time, in the sense that it's not clearly specified what the conditions are, and like how exactly this like value that you have in mind is going to be something which directly translates into action. And I'm also secondarily making the claim that all human flourishing is going to be something which includes a certain set of those values, which cannot be specified in advance, right? And so the reason as to why I'm saying this is a pushback against Rand is that Rand will be resistive, right, towards the idea that you can have valuable goals, genuine valuable goals, which are also vague. Because for Rand, in order for a goal to be genuine, it has to be the case that there are at least specified and translatable and actionable results from the goal, not just the mere thought or the thinking about the goal, but that you're actually acting and moving in ways to achieve the goal, right? So for example, if somebody says, I want to love someday, that's not a genuine goal for Rand. Yet
I don't think she
most,
would
you
say
know,
that, actually. I don't think
hold
she
on a
would
second.
say
So
that.
how is it how is it genuine if they haven't specified any conditions for the goal?
Well, maybe you could say it's not genuine if someone refuses to specify, like if they're not willing to go further and try to figure out exactly who do I love. But I think you can I think she's fine with holding values in an abstract way. It's just that that's not sufficient. You temporarily,
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
that's fine, but eventually you have to specify them.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So this is exactly what I'm resisting toward is like, why is it not sufficient without sort of begging the question? And I'm taking begging the question to be the sort of, it's an informal fallacy in rhetoric, essentially, where like any set of reasons that you're employing for a specific premise will be something which is parasitic on the conclusion, right? So are you able to actually deliver some sort of argument as to why it wouldn't be enough to just say to just have the nebulous goal as opposed to the specified goals?
Okay, why it's not enough? Um, I don't know that I have a lot to say on that. I mean, I tried to give some example before of how it would be insufficient. Like I gave the example of choosing a major. Like if you're in college, you might know, well, I want to major in the humanities, but the college requires you to pick a specific humanity field like history or philosophy. So it's not sufficient just to leave it at the level of I want to major in the humanities.
But why?
You're not going to get your degree if you don't choose a specific field.
But that is just a statement about actionability, which is something that's assumed in your view about what is constitutive of the idea of it being a genuine goal. So that would just be begging the question.
I don't follow that.
Okay, look, so your response was you literally cannot get a degree, like practically, unless you specify what you're going to school for, right?
Eventually, I mean, you could start out without specifying, like when you first enter the college, but maybe by year two, you have to select a major.
Right. So so you're saying like it's like literally part of the school system that it's like inbuilt into the system that you have to take this course of action in order to actually achieve that goal, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm saying that's going to be an appeal to actionability, right? You're just appealing to an action happening in the world when you're going to be making the claim that you have to do this thing in order to achieve the goal. But if you recall, actionability is one of the requirement conditions in order for something to count as a genuine goal in the first place, which is exactly what's in question right now as to whether or not those are the things that make a goal genuine. So, which is why I'm saying that you're begging the question.
Okay. I still don't follow that. I don't know if it has to do with this term actionability. I mean, it has to be actionable in. I mean, there can be different maybe stages of actionability. Like you can get through your first year without specifying the goal more concretely than I want to be in the humanities major. But then by year two, let's say they say you now have to say to select a specific field, and so maybe to continue um, in your college, you have to it has to become actionable in the sense that you've now chosen history or philosophy or something
Yeah,
else
exactly. This is
by
my
year
point.
two. But
Yeah, this is my
I don't.
point. And remember the question that I asked you a moment ago. I said, why isn't it a genuine value? You said, because you literally cannot achieve it unless you go through the
Well,
way the
I don't
system is
know.
set
I
up.
don't know that I said something is not a genuine value. I've been saying an
No, well,
abstract
you
goal
said,
is a genuine value, but it can't always remain at that level.
sorry, you said it's not enough. And then I said, why is it not enough? And then you said,
Eventually,
well,
it's
it's
not
not
enough. At
enough.
first, it might be enough.
Right. So the point is that the argument that you're giving for why it's not enough is something which bakes into your concept of what being not enough is in the first place. Okay. So for you, you have baked into the concept of not being enough that in order to be enough, it has to be actionable. Right.
I guess you could put it that way. I don't usually think in those
Right.
terms, but I guess I could go along with that for now.
So then to appeal to actionability, sorry, I'm getting a phone call. To appeal to actionability as a means of demonstrating why your criterion of genuine values is correct would be to beg the question, because the criterion of actionability is something which is subsumed in your concept of what a genuine goal is in the first place.
All right, I'm still not seeing it. Maybe I got some notes I'm taking here. Maybe if I write down exactly what you're saying, I could get a better sense of where you're seeing question begging.
Okay, maybe I can try to better explain this in a different way. So imagine if like somebody was attempting to explain like why human beings have true beliefs. Okay. This is like completely different example, has nothing to do with the topic. It's just going to be an analogy to demonstrate what I'm talking about. Okay.
Hmm.
So I want to pretty much prove the claim that human beings have true beliefs. And then I make a hypothesis to predict certain things which might confirm or not confirm my hypothesis. Right. So then what I do is I look out into the world and I say, oh, well, when you look out throughout human history, human beings evolved to have true beliefs because it was conducive to their survival. And so that's why human beings have true beliefs, right? Notice how in the evidence which I appeal to, right, it was something which subsumed true beliefs within it as a means of proving why we have true beliefs in the first place. Okay, so I didn't actually say anything about why human beings have true beliefs. I just subsumed it in my quote unquote evidence and then delivered it to you, pretending as if it was somehow proving the claim that human beings have true beliefs. So similarly, when you say in order for a goal to be genuine, that it has to be actionable, when I give you a counterexample and then you say, oh, well, the counterexample is not genuine because it's not actionable, that would be to beg the question because you're assuming that in order for it to be genuine, it has to be actionable in the first place.
All right, I wrote this down. According to you, I said for a goal to be genuine, it has to be actionable. Now, I think I put on some kind of addendum or qualifier to that that was to the effect of, well, it has to be actionable at a certain point, like when you hit a certain stage. I mean,
I
there are
didn't.
stages to this, so I'm not sure that the I would want to sign on to the formulation that for a goal to be genuine, it has to be actionable without any kind of qualifier. I might want to say at a certain point, it has to be actionable.
So you're adding a qualification of at a certain point. So how does adding the qualification diffuse the claim of the reasoning that you're offering, that you're propagating here for the concept of genuine values being something parasitic on your very notion of what a genuine value is? How is it sort of diffusing that claim?
I'm not even clear on what the
What the question is? Okay, maybe
or
let me just.
where the potential parasitism is.
It's in the idea that in order that your rejection of my counterexample, where I say that um, the statement "I want to help humanity" is a genuine value, you're saying no, it's not a genuine value because that's not an
No,
actionable.
I'm not saying it's not a genuine value. I'm just saying it's an abstract value.
Yeah, what? Sure, whatever. It's an abstract value,
Well, I think those
and
are
it's not
importantly
a.
different. It's not like whatever.
No, I'm saying like I'm willing to grant the term abstract instead of genuine here. Like that's completely fine with me. The substitution there doesn't really change much about the point that I'm making here. So
Okay.
yeah. So if we say yeah, like those types of like if I say I want to help humanity someday, that would be an abstract value. But if I were to say I want to help humanity someday, so I'm gonna go to this location at 8 a.m. tomorrow and donate $100, that would be a genuine value, right?
It would also be a genuine value. It's not that the first
Okay.
wasn't. I would say both the I want to help humanity is a genuine value, and I want to go to this place at 8 a.m. tomorrow. That is also a
What
genuine
makes a
value.
value genuine?
What makes a value genuine? I mean, I think part of it is what we've been talking about, that you put it into practice, or maybe actionable is the term you would
So
use.
how is the
There's
first one? How is the first one a genuine value if it's not actionable?
well, I don't think it's not actionable.
It's not. Saying I want to help humanity someday is not actionable. And by the way, you just walked right into my point. So I predicted this conversation 10 minutes ago. Like what you just said, I predicted that like 5 minutes ago. This is exactly the point that I was making the whole time, is that your notion of genuine value is something which has actionability subsumed within it, right? So notice how when I asked you a moment ago, what is a genuine value? The first thing that you said was it has to be actionable. That was my point.
Well, I mean, there's different senses to actionable. So maybe in a sense, the abstract value is actionable, and in a sense, it's not.
Wait, hold on a second. So I'm not talking about like the different types of actionability. I'm saying in what sense is the first statement genuine given that it's not actionable?
Well, I don't grant that it's just blanketly not actionable. I think in a sense it is actionable.
I don't know. Okay, so you're how is it actionable? Like for
It's
okay, let's use a more abstract example. If I say I wish that everybody admired me, is that actionable?
um, maybe in a sense.
You can't say that because that entirely depends on other people. That was the point of the example, was that it's an instance where the action is completely separate from your desires. This is a okay, look, maybe I feel like I'm like 10 steps ahead. I'm not even joking, bro. Like, yo. Sorry, my bad.
I don't know if that was intended to be condescension.
No, sorry. I shouldn't have said that. It's my bad.
Well, let me. How about I take a little chat break? Let me see what's going on in there. Um, I guess Mariella is hopefully still there. She was the one who volunteered to be a mod. Where's my list of chatters? See, sometimes I can scroll. Here we go. I'm just looking to see if Mariella is still in there. Oh, Eduardo's here. Hi, Eduardo. I guess you could be a mod if you wanted to. Oh, Radcap is here. Hello. Let me see if there's any other. I recognize a few of these other names too, but I guess
Oh, you know Radcap?
a little bit. I mean, I've had a couple conversations with him.
Yeah, Radcap's pretty cool. Same thing with Eduardo. Those two guys are
Oh, there's Mariella.
genuinely like genuinely cool ass dudes. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay. Well, maybe I should. I don't want to impose mod responsibilities on anyone, but if I guess if Eduardo wanted to be a mod, I can make him a mod. It's good to have multiple mods because in case one mod has to leave, then the other mod can pick up if they want to. So I guess I'm looking for a chat from Eduardo. So I haven't seen anything yet, but or you could also DM me. Sometimes it's hard to see all the chats because they go by so quickly. But if you DM me, um,
Eduardo said he'd be happy to mod.
okay, I just see that. All right, I'm gonna make Eduardo another mod, and then good. So now I'm gonna have 4 mods total, and I'm gonna give you the power to mute and block.
The only thing I'll say about mods is that just be careful about who you moderate because a lot of people just have quick fingers.
Yeah, if I see a problem, like if I think people are being too aggressive and blocking people, then I can undo that, I guess. And you can also email me at the address on my YouTube channel if you think you were unjustly blocked or muted, and maybe I can take some action on that. But anyways, I got 4 mods now, so the chances of not having any of them around, I guess, are diminishing, which is good. My live stream got flagged last time because someone was something in the chat was said that was hate speech, I guess. But now I got mods who can deal with that. All right, so
I
I
can
did have
repeat
someone in
the,
a couple streams ago who I ended the chat with them because I thought they were being condescending. So hopefully it doesn't go that direction now.
yeah, for sure, for sure. I can like repeat the example again just to kind of get back on track here.
All right.
So the example here is just somebody utters the claim that I wish everybody admired me or took admiration of me. Now, the dispute here is whether or not this is going to be a nebulous goal or a non-nebulous goal, right? So I'm on the side that it's nebulous in the sense that the content of the belief or the content of the desire is something which entirely relies on other people, right? External agents. And so it cannot even be something which can be translated into actionability in the first person sense, which is something which apparently is a requirement condition in order for a goal to be genuine from the onset. And so my question to you is, in what sense is the phrase, I want everyone to admire me, actionable?
All right. There's a lot there. Let me see if I can say something. First of all, maybe I should say I don't think that's a good goal to have everyone admire you. But maybe you can just set that aside. If that is your goal, Peter Keating might be an example of this. He's a character in Ayn Rand's novel, The Fountainhead. He wants other people to like him. So if that is your goal, what is it actionable? Well, I mean, I guess you could, in some sense, it's actionable. You could find out what other people admire, and let's say they admire someone who is makes a lot of money, and then you could say, oh, well, a lot of people will admire someone who makes a lot of money, so I guess maybe an action I can take is to make a lot of money. So it's in some sense it's actionable. Now maybe there's other people who have a contradictory value system, and they think it's good to give away your money. Maybe they're very Christian and they think it's good to be like Jesus and give away your material possessions and be poor. And now you've got a conflict on your hands. You don't know whether you should make a lot of money or give away all your money, because you can't. I guess this is at least one reason why I think it's an irrational goal to try to make everyone admire you, because people have contradictory things that they admire.
Yeah. I think
But
that's
there's some kind of action you could take to satisfy at least some of the people, some of the time. But
yeah.
let me just pause there. Sounds like you want to say something.
Let me just say this, which is that I agree with what you're saying to some degree. So I agree with you in the sense that there are actions that people could take, right, to achieve this goal, right? But I think that's going to be a fundamentally different question than whether or not the goal as a concept is something which is actionable in the sense that you have in mind, right? Because, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm interpreting your understanding of actionability to be something which is understood in the first person sense, right? In the sense that the agent is acting for the sake of themselves, right?
Well, I think I'm an egoist, so I think the agent should act for his own sake, but you could be an altruist and think that it's good to act for the sake of others. And I think in both the case of the egoist and the altruist, there's at least some sense in which they could both hold actionable goals.
Well, but my point is that if you're defining actionability in this first person sense, in the sense that it has to be for the sake of some goal that fulfills your rational self-interests, then when you have a case where the content of the statement fundamentally depends on people outside of yourself, it's not even coherent to call that actionable on your definition.
I'm not sure why. Here's an example,
Because
which I'm curious. So let's say I have a goal of growing my social media following, which I do, and you could say, well, that goal depends on the actions of other people. True, like I can't force anyone to follow my channel, um, but what I can do is take actions which I think will increase the likelihood that people will decide to follow my channel. I can do live streams. I can bring on guests that people are interested in. So there's a sense in which, even if achieving some goal is not entirely within my hands, I can still do things. There are things within my power I can do, which I think nevertheless help me achieve that goal.
right, but I don't think that's the same thing as admirability.
Well, I think there's some, like, okay, let's say I want somebody in particular to admire me, um, and I can take actions to, like, if I want to impress a girl and get her to date me. Um, Now I
But
can't
we're not talking
directly
about.
just flip a switch in her brain that makes her interested in me, but I can do things like go to the gym. If if I, let's say I know that she values a nice looking body, I can go to the gym. I can watch my diet, and these are ways I could get someone else to, more likely at least, admire me.
You can get a specific you can do things to get a specific person to admire you, but there's nothing that you can do to get everyone to admire you.
Okay, I mean, I might be fine with granting that. I don't
Well,
think
if
it's,
you're
as
if
I
you're
said earlier, I don't think it's a rational goal to get everyone to admire you.
if you're granting that, then I mean, then you would just be conceding to what I'm saying here, which is that um, the concept, like the phrase "I want everyone to admire me," is not going to be something which is actionable. I.e., there's no action that you can do to actually satisfy that phrase.
Well, I mean, there are irrational goals, so um, in a sense, I guess I would agree with you. Like, let's say if my goal is to get God to bless me with good health, I could pray to God, and now I don't think there is a God, so this might be like an unactionable goal, in a sense. But I guess if you're under the illusion that there is a God, I would call it an illusion, then you might mistakenly think that doing certain things like praying could be a way of getting better health. So like you can hold irrational or contradictory values, and like I said, you could find out some people like money, some people don't like money, and maybe in the course of pursuing this abstract goal of getting everyone to admire you, you would figure out, well, I can't actually achieve that goal, and so now I need to choose some other achievable goal.
Well, I mean, I think that's my point is that like so to just kind of for you to say that it's not the case that there's any action that you can take for everyone to admire you would pretty much just to be agreeing to the idea that there's no actionable like translation that you can take for that statement to then manifest itself into reality, right? Yet that is a genuine goal for certain people, right? Certain people genuinely value the fact and they have it as a value. Sorry, my cat is walking in front of my face. Some people genuinely have this goal in mind, right? That they wish to get to a point where like everybody admires them. Obviously, for the majority of us, we understand this is not uh, a real goal that can be achievable. But as to the status of the goal itself, whether or not it's rational or irrational, I think it's irrelevant to sort of the point that I'm propagating here.
Okay. I'm not sure what the best direction is to go here. I don't know if we're just if we're going to circle, or if we already are circling, or
I
what.
guess, I mean, here's a direction that we can go. it seems to me that, and I want to, this is kind of like part of what I wanted to talk about previously as well, is that it seems like objectivism has this kind of, what's the word that I'm looking for? Emphasis almost on radical individualism. I think you also referred to yourself as an individualist previously.
Hmm.
And objectivism seems to treat self-interest as primary, right? So this kind of primacy account that they have of like what self-interest is. But how do you merge that with the seemingly inherently social nature of human beings, in the sense that seemingly every aspect of our lives fundamentally are interdependent, and that they rely on things like cooperation, things like empathy with other human beings, things like care, in order to even function as a society in the first place? How do you merge these two ideas together?
This came up with the previous caller. I don't think there's any conflict between self-interest and caring about others. In fact, I think they're very integratable. I think it's you achieve your self-interest if you have other people in your life, friends, romantic partners, business
How is that not?
partners.
How is that not?
They help your life go better. What was that?
How is that not just begging the question?
Back to begging the question the second time. How is it begging the question?
Because it seems like you're just asserting that the reason why I'm involving myself in a community is because it fulfills my rational self-interests. But
I'm
how
not
can you?
assuming that. I think that should be the reason someone does it,
But do you
but it
think it
doesn't
is the
have to be
reason?
the reason.
Okay. So when you say that it should be the reason, do you have like an argument for that?
Well, I think if you accept as a premise that it's good to pursue your self-interest, I think it follows through that. It follows from that you should find a society, a certain kind of society at least. I don't think every society is going to be in your self-interest to join. Like if you're a Jew in Nazi Germany, it's probably in your self-interest to get away from that society. But um, if you can find a society that respects people's rights and like Israel or the United States, not that they're perfect, but I think they respect rights much better than a society like Nazi Germany, then I think it's in your interests to join that type of society because I think you'll be much more able to achieve your goals, your rational goals, than if you're subject to force and coercion, authoritarianism.
Give me 1 second.
Sure. Thanks for the diamonds and the follows. Taking a look at the chat now. USA Champ is in the waiting room. Been there for a while. Maybe I'll take your call next.
All right. Can you repeat the last point that you made? Sorry, I had to go take care of something.
Let's see. I was saying that it's in your self-interest to join certain kinds of societies. Not if you're a Jew in Nazi Germany, that's a bad society for you. But if you can find a society like the U.S. or Israel, which is relatively good at respecting rights, I think, then it is in your self-interest to join that society because you're more able to achieve your goals, your rational goals, and your happiness, I would say.
So, um, I guess I can just ask you a series of questions. Like, is value, on your view, determined on the basis of goal-oriented action?
Well, it's is it determined on the basis of goal-oriented action? I think it maybe it presupposes. I'm not sure exactly what how to specify the relationship between value and goal-oriented action. I think only living things can have goals, like a rock doesn't have goals or values, and it also can't engage in goal-oriented action. So this is a point Rand makes in her, well, in Atlas Shrugged and The Objectivist Ethics, that
So what about instances where people actually seem to take and thrive on risky behaviors, in the sense that it's a behavior which is risking their own life, but they just take enjoyment in doing so.
Evil Knievel might be an example of this. Someone who he drives super fast motorcycles or cars, and he goes off these ramps and flies through the air. I think there are people who they get pleasure. You might call it a sick, twisted kind of pleasure, or people who play Russian roulette. Um, I don't I don't think those are rational goals. I think they're or rational values. I think those are irrational values,
So how
which
can
are
you say,
not consistent with a state of happiness.
okay, okay. So I guess my question is, how are you going to sort of forward an argument for the claim that type of value is actually something which is irrational, without just falling back on your assumed standard of happiness?
How is it irrational without falling back on my standard of happiness? uh, I'm not sure what the proper order here is. Like, maybe we should talk about what is a standard of value first, or a rational standard of value. And then maybe if we get that sorted out, we can then see in relation to that standard that certain things would not be rational. I'm
Wait,
not
in
sure what
relation to
the
what?
best method for it here is.
I think on Rand's view, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it correct to say that in order for a behavior to be goal directed, uh, and that we predicate that of an entity, that it has to be the case that it is pursuing, not only that it's pursuing an end, but that the pursuit of that end actually makes a difference to the outcome? Is that something that you believe in?
I'm not sure how to answer that. I mean, there are maybe it'd be useful to think in terms of some examples here. Like, I think living organisms, so plants, animals, um, they have goals, and they or ends. You could put it in terms of ends, and the goals they. Well, maybe let's start with a plant. Maybe that's a simpler case. You could say the plants is pursuing sunlight and water, and these ends make a difference to the plants in that they enable it to continue surviving. And
This is a circular view.
okay, I don't even know if I finished getting the view out yet. I was kind of in the midst of explaining it, but if you want to jump in now, go ahead.
Yeah, so the circularity is that happiness consists in the behavior of the entity, right? And so if we take a case, for example, where, again, like you have somebody who's seemingly wants something that's bad for them, right?
Happiness consists in the behavior of the entity.
Yes, you already agreed to this. I asked you previously at the very beginning of the conversation. You said yes.
I don't think I agreed to that.
You did, and it's recorded.
All right. Well, people can rewind the VOD and see if I said that happiness consists in the behavior of an entity.
I mean, how could you even disagree with that as a Randian? I'm actually curious.
I think behavior is relevant to happiness, but I don't think that's exactly the same as saying happiness consists in the behavior of an entity.
Can something that doesn't behave achieve happiness? like a
And
rock.
also the issue of whether that follows from being a Randian is different from the issue of whether I actually said that earlier in the call.
Well, I mean, as to whether or not you said that, that's just going to be a matter of like going back in the recording and checking. But do you think that something that doesn't behave can achieve happiness?
Something that doesn't behave?
Yes.
What do you mean by behave? You mean act in accordance with some principle, or just act,
Yeah.
period? Or what
Yeah.
exactly?
Act in accordance with some principle.
Uh, I don't think. I mean, I feel like kind of we're dealing with sort of floaty concepts here, but I guess just to take a first stab at it, I don't think you can just act without some kind of guidance in your action and be successful. Like if you just act blindly, act on whim without thinking about the consequences of what you're doing, um, I
And
don't
in
think
order to
that's a recipe for happiness.
Right. And in order to live up to the standard of happiness, you have to be behaving in specific ways, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that means happiness consists in the behavior. You do agree with it. You just said it again.
I think the behavior is a necessary condition, but
That's what
happiness
consists.
is also it's an emotion.
Okay, so
That
that
doesn't
this is,
mention experience
I'm
or
not talking about
emotion.
that sense of, yeah, I'm just not talking about that sense of happiness. I'm talking about the Randian sense of happiness, not the fleeting feeling emotion that you get when you eat ice cream. I'm talking about the actual, like, objective living conditions for your individual flourishing in the Randian sense, right? So,
Well, the Randian
again,
sense of
like,
happiness includes emotion and
it,
experience.
it might include it, but that's not the primary sense that she's speaking from when she talks about happiness. She's not talking about the emotional aspect as a primary.
Well, you said you've only done a superficial reading of Rand,
I
but
lied.
now you're telling me what she says. Maybe you're right. Maybe I got this one wrong, but I've been studying her for decades, and I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
I
so
know
I,
that it's important to her view that happiness has an emotional component.
yeah, so first of all, I lied. I actually have read a lot of Rand. I'll actually just quote you a direct quote right here from Rand. Quote, goal-directed behavior is possible only because of an entity's action, its pursuit of a certain end, and that it can make a difference to the outcome. So this is what I'm saying.
Okay, well, that didn't say anything about happiness, or did I miss that?
No, what that just said is that goal-directed behavior is only possible because of action.
Okay, well, we were just talking about happiness, and it seems like you're switching to a different point. And you also said you lied.
You think
I
you
don't know
think
if I
goal
want to carry on the conversation if you're going to lie.
I mean, if you're willing to drop the entire conversation because I lied about how much I've read, then that's your prerogative.
I don't know. It at least makes me wonder.
It's up to you. I mean, just let me know, I guess.
Um, well, maybe we should just do this. We can end the call for now, and then maybe another time we can talk some more.
Okay. See you later.
All right. See ya. All right. Just looking at some chats. I got 70 people watching. That's good to see. Much more than my last live stream, I think. And maybe that's because he has a lot of followers. And a lot of people were suggesting or recommending that I bring him on. All right, so we got USA Champ and one other person in the guest list now. USA Champ has been waiting a long time, so I think I'm going to take him next. All right, let me just get my water here. I got to take a breath for a second. All right. USA Champ.
You?
Hi.
Hello? How you doing?
All right. How are you?
Hi. So there's a few topics and things you mentioned that I disagree with or wanted to talk about, but I kind of just want to have more of a conversation, I guess. Is that all right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, well, for one, I find it kind of strange that you're opposed to collectivism, but you are in favor of the state of Israel. Wasn't the state of Israel formed based on collectivism?
My understanding is that it was founded by a socialist party, or at least they back in 1948. The Socialist Party was the party in power, and in more recent decades, a right wing party, Likud, has come to power. I don't follow Israel politics very closely, but I certainly don't agree with everything about Israel. So when I put Israel in the good category, that doesn't mean I think it's perfect, but I just think it's relatively good compared to many other countries in the world, including in particular the ones surrounding it, which I think many of which are dictatorships. And I also think Israel gets smeared a lot, and for those reasons, I wanted to show it some support on my list. But no, it's not perfect, and it has contradictions. I think, like the military draft, I think that's a violation of individual rights. I certainly oppose that, and but I think, relatively speaking, it's one of the better countries on the world stage, in my
Mm.
view.
I just, I just don't. I'm wondering if you find that a little bit contradictory, given that it emerged out of collectivism, or do you just like its current state?
Well, I don't. I wouldn't say it's entirely collectivist. I mean, there are degrees of collectivism. Like there's Nazi Germany collectivism, and I guess the Aryan race is the collective, which is considered the supreme value. And then you've got Soviet Russia. But I wouldn't put Israel in the same category as that, even if they are socialist to some degree. I think there are degrees of socialism. I mean, I think the United States is socialist to a certain degree. We have programs like Social Security and Medicare, which I think could be called socialist programs, at least to a large extent. But I wouldn't thereby say, well, the entire country, there's nothing individualist about it. I think a lot of countries are mixtures, and the mixture of individualism and collectivism varies depending on the country. And I think even with whatever collectivism there is in Israel, I think there is still respect for the individual to a significant degree. I imagine even back in 1948, when it was founded, there was property rights to some degree. I think a lot of the people in Israel bought their property from Arabs, I think back in the late 19th century. Um, so now there's taxation, I assume, and I think that's a violation of rights. So they're certainly not perfect, but they're also not the worst when it comes to collectivism, I think.
So some degree of collectivism is okay or good?
No, it's not good. It's just that some collectivisms are much worse than others. Like the collectivism in Soviet Russia is much worse than the collectivism in the United States today with programs like Social Security. They're both bad though, but they're different degrees of
So,
bad.
so given given that you think Israel is good and the surrounding countries are bad, how do you think that they protect themselves from the surrounding countries without both collectivism and taxation?
Well, I
Do you
don't think
think they
they.
should rely on private donations or
That's one means. There are other means of voluntarily funding a government's lotteries is another way. Some states, I think, get funding. Ayn Rand has an article called "Government Financing in a Free Society," in which she discusses this issue, and she discusses a particular idea at length, whereby people can pay to have contracts enforced. Like if you're a business, a corporation, and you do business with other corporations and you want your contracts to be enforced, you could pay the government money to enforce those contracts in case there's a contract dispute. That's another way the government could get some revenue in a voluntary, non-coercive way. And then these revenues could be used to fund the military and the police in the court system, which are basically the only proper functions of government on Rand's view.
sure, but given the basically theoretical nature of that, I mean, do you have any evidence that that would work currently? Should they switch to that system right now, or
I don't I don't think they should
should
necessarily,
Israel
or
switch to that situation now for the
it might be better to transition to it more gradually than just do it overnight, since it's I don't know that it would be workable right now. I think people have to support something in order for it to be a successful policy. um, I think at least in the long run, it's not going to be able to last unless it has popular support. And I don't think there is popular support anywhere, to my knowledge, for a completely voluntary system. So I'm doubtful you can just impose that right now overnight and have that work. I think it's something that people need to be persuaded is a good idea. And that's part of what I'm trying to do here, is just persuade people of a different set of ideas. And then hopefully over time, that will result in political, among other changes. But I don't think it necessarily would work right now in 2026, given the state of
do you
mind of people.
do you think there are situations where a certain group was facing annihilation that collectivism would be better for their interest than individualism?
No, I don't think collectivism is ever better. That would mean it's sometimes better to prioritize the group to over the individual, or sacrifice the individual for the sake of the group. And I don't think that's ever a good thing to do.
So, but aren't there power in numbers?
Yeah, there can be, at least.
Why have a why why have a military? Isn't
Because
isn't having a military in the interests of your country? Isn't that some form of collectivism?
no, I don't think having a military is collectivism. I think it's in each individual's interest for there to be a military to protect him or her from foreign threats. It's not collectivist. It's good for me as an
So
individual, and it's good for you as an individual. And
what if I, what if you don't? What if you want to opt out? What if you think the goals of the military at a given time are against your interests and a waste of your money?
well, you shouldn't be forced to support it. So if you think the military is engaged in irrational wars, going about wars the wrong way, which I think has happened many times, um, then in a free society, you wouldn't be forced through taxation to support that military. You could stop donating if you were donating before, and not resume donations until and unless it starts acting in a way that you think is better.
So you basically want private militaries?
No, I wouldn't say private. If I mean, I do think if by private you mean not a government function, no, that's not what I want. I just want. I think the military is appropriately a government function because it deals with force. I think that's the role of government, is to wield force in retaliation, not to initiate force, but to use retaliatory force, like not to engage in wars of aggression. That would be initiating force, but to engage in wars of self-defense, retaliatory force, I think that's proper. One of the proper functions of government. But I think that function should be funded by voluntary means, not by coercive taxation.
But your mindset could potentially lead to a total breakdown or failure because if you completely everyone decided collective or not collectively but individually, if a mass of society decided we're not going to financially support the military anymore, then its functions would cease to it would cease to function.
Well, if people decide not to support their own defense, then I think that's their problem. And I don't think that's a society that deserves to survive. If you're not willing to lift a finger in your own defense, then, well, you're being irrational and you suffer the consequences. But I think if people are being rational, they will support their own defense. They will donate if necessary, and not just money, but their lives. They might risk their lives for the cause of freedom. And this was the case with the American Revolutionary War. George Washington had a volunteer army, and people were fighting for the cause of freedom. Give me liberty or give me death, said Patrick Henry. They would rather be
So
dead than live as slaves. Oh,
you would have
Eduardo says
opposed
he's
the
got to
draft in
go.
World
One
War
of my
II?
mods, sorry, just a second. Bye, Eduardo. Thanks for being a mod. Is my other mod still here? Mary, Marie. Let me just take a look at the list and see if she's still in there. Oh, Radcap is here, and he's one of my mods, but I don't know if he's able to mod now. I might have someone I've given mod privileges, but they don't want to exercise mod privilege. Oh, Bree is here too. Okay, and she's a mod. Okay, I think I'm set now. I've got mods. I just wanted to make sure I had mods before I continued. Okay, good. Um, so you were going to say something?
You would have opposed the draft in World War II?
Yes, yes. I don't. Was there a draft in World War II? I don't know. I know there was for the Vietnam
Even
War, but
yes,
if there was a
yes.
draft, then yes, I would oppose it.
61% of servicemen in World War II were draftees.
Okay, yeah, I oppose that. I think people should be left free to voluntarily
If
decide.
it even if it would have cost us the
Yeah,
even if it would have cost the U.S. the war.
yeah, Yeah, because if you have to lose your life fighting for the, well, what's the point of defending your own freedom if you don't have freedom? Like, I don't think it's rational to fight in a, like, for the Russian army, like under Putin, you're fighting to support a dictatorship. So I think an army like that has to rely on conscription. But I don't think, if you're a free country, I think people will voluntarily sign up to support it. And if they don't, then it's like they want to live in a free country without doing what's necessary to defend freedom. But then I think it's their problem. They don't deserve freedom if they're not willing to do the things necessary to defend their own freedom. But I think it's a kind of contradiction
Even if that,
to like
well, doesn't that doom
to say these people should be forced to fight for their country to ensure its freedom. Forcing people to defend their freedom is a contradiction, I think. So then there's
yeah,
not
but
really
wouldn't you
freedom.
doom
Go ahead.
Sure. Wouldn't you have doomed the volunteers? And I mean, let's say, I mean, not that losing World War II would be necessarily be the destruction of America, but let's say you had the hypothetical war, and you were not willing to draft people. You would doom both those who were unable to fight. You would doom those who did volunteer because they wouldn't have enough compatriots. What about their freedom?
I don't think they would be. I don't think doom would be the results if you didn't have a draft. I mean, you could stipulate hypothetically anything, I guess, but if we're talking about reality, I don't think the results of not having a draft is going to be doom. But I guess if you're just, you ask, like, hypothetically, if um, not having a draft would lead to doom, would you still oppose the draft? I would say yes, because I'm primarily concerned about the individual, not some political entity that might or might not continue. I want to be free to live my own life as I choose. That's the primary value, not the continuation of some collective which might try to impose its will on me. So that's why primarily
But
why I oppose the draft. It interferes with my rights.
but you would lose your own rights in the end anyway. So it was just your futile attempt to be an individual that cost everyone everything.
Well, I've already lost my rights if there's a draft, so I don't think I'm better off. At least if I am left free, I can say I'm fighting for a free country if I do decide to go to war. But
Sorry, you break up sometimes. It's
oh,
frozen.
I'm frozen. Is anybody
I
else
don't know if you can for a moment. I can hear you now.
okay? Like,
Okay,
if I'm drafted into a military, why wouldn't I might consider, turning on my own country, and what's to stop people from doing that? If they're now treating me as a slave, it's now my duty to give up my life. Now it's no longer just a foreign threat. It's my own government which is threatening me. So why shouldn't I turn my weapons on my own governments? What's to stop people from doing that if you're treating them like this?
perhaps a possibility that you won't be treated any better by the opposing force. I mean, you're willing to give up everyone's life and everyone's freedom for temporary loss of the freedom of a few people.
I don't think, I think there's a harmony of interests. Like, I think it's in everyone's interest not to be subject to conscription. I'm not saying only a few people will benefit from this and everyone else is going to be destroyed. I think everyone is going to be better off if everyone is left free. And I think people will be much more motivated to fight if they are left free and know that what they're fighting for is a free country, where their rights are respected. That's going to motivate me to fight much more than if I know I'm fighting for a coercive authoritarian regime. I don't want that to survive, but I want my free country to survive.
Yeah. Do, your in your opinion, do these rights start at the age of 18, or
No, I think
is a
you
child
have,
subject to their parents?
I think all human beings have rights, but human beings under 18 are still human beings. They also have rights. Now, the way they express their rights is somewhat different when they're minors. Like you you don't have full freedom as a child to decide what you're going to do. Like if you run out into a street and there's oncoming traffic, your parents can use force to pull you out of the streets. And if you don't want to eat your vegetables, your parents can make you go to your room or do something to punish you. Whereas if you're an adult and you don't want to eat your vegetables, you don't have to eat your vegetables, and maybe you'll suffer some consequences. But no one has a right to force you or penalize you for not eating your vegetables. So things are different when you're a child, but you still have rights. Like you can't just kill a child, an innocent child. You would be violating the child's rights. But there are some things which you can only do
That,
once you're 18 or whatever the age of adulthood is, like
yeah, that has to
engaging
be enforced by the state. The
contracts
parent,
without parental consent. What?
but that all has to be enforced by the state. The parental power has to be enforced by the state, right? No?
Well, the state does have to be able to step in if the parents are abusing the child, for instance, like a physical abuse or torture. Then I think it's appropriate for the state to step in because the child's rights are being violated.
So you do want some regulation then?
I wouldn't call that regulation. I would just call it law. I think regulations involve initiating force, but when laws are designed to protect people from the initiation of force, I think that's legitimate law, not what I would call regulation. So if the parent is physically abusing the child, then the parent is initiating force against the child in a unjustified way. It's not like pulling the child out of oncoming traffic. That kind of force is okay. It's done for the best interest of the child, so it doesn't get hit by a car. But if the parent is just torturing the child, that kind of initiation of force is inappropriate. And when the state steps in to stop that, it would be using retaliatory force, retaliating against the parent's initiation of force. So I wouldn't call it a regulation.
So, but you do believe the government can compel the adult to do things that are beneficial to the child, for instance, to go to school?
I'm doubtful of that. There's actually some difference of opinion among objectivists. Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism, followers of that. I know I've heard one one person say that the government should require that parents give their children a minimal education, so they at least learn basic things like reading, writing, and arithmetic. But beyond that, the state shouldn't step in. But I've heard other objectivists say that no, the state shouldn't even require that minimal amount of education. All it should do is step in if and when the parents are physically abusing the child. And I actually am more sympathetic to that latter view. I think if parents, if they don't give their children education, that's irrational, at least in today's world. Maybe if you're a caveman 100,000 years ago, it's normal, and maybe your children just work and help you as a hunter-gatherer. But in today's world, I think it would be irrational, at least in the vast majority of cases, not to give your child an education. And you could boycott the parents and shun them socially and try to ostracize them and put social pressure on them to try to make them change. But I don't think, personally, I don't see that it's appropriate for the state to step in and force the parents to educate their children or send them to school. Now, the child can also do some things to self-educate, like go to the library or look things up on a computer if they have access to an iPad or something. So even if the parents don't try to educate the children, I don't think that necessarily means the child isn't going to get any education. Maybe they can learn things from friends as well, borrow their laptop or something and learn things. So, but I don't think the parents should be forced to provide an education.
Aren't there already like large disparities in people that come from well-off environments and get on a good educational track versus those who don't? You want to grow those disparities?
I don't want to grow
and
the
put the risk
disparities,
that
but I don't have a problem with them. I'm not an egalitarian. I don't
But-
think that everyone should have equal everything. I'm concerned, the kind of equality that I think is important in this context is equality before the law. So just because you're rich doesn't mean you should be able to get away with schmurder. You should go to jail or maybe suffer capital punishment. So you should be equal before the law. You should have equal rights. Like you don't have and that includes property rights. So just because you're a billionaire doesn't mean that it's okay for you to be taxed to support other people. I think everyone, regardless of their level of wealth, has a right to their property. So that's what I mean when I say equality of rights or equality before the law. But if you're talking about equality of income or wealth or opportunities, no, I don't believe in that. I don't have the same opportunities as someone who raises a child of a billionaire, but that doesn't give me any right to steal the money from the child of that billionaire so that I can afford just as lavish a lifestyle. I just make the best of my own situation. So I oppose egalitarianism.
you are entitled to the defense of the state, but you're entitled to the defense of the state of your property and person.
Sorry, just checking something on my phone here. I want to make sure the background is showing up as I intend it. I think I might need to adjust it on my screen. People can let me know, but the top of the words are cut off where it says request to debate. I can't see that on my phone, or I can only see part of the letters. So I think maybe next time I go live, I'm going to move it a little bit to the right and then a little bit down, and fewer of the letters will be cut off. You can let me know how it appears for you. Sorry, can you repeat your last question?
You believe that you are entitled to the defense and protection of the state of your property and person.
Am I entitled to it? Well, not if that means that other people have to be forced to provide it through taxation, for instance. Like if other people want to voluntarily support the military, which protects my rights and everyone's rights, that's fine. But no one should be forced to protect my rights. It should all be done voluntarily. So if what you mean by a right is
So
something that
you
other people
would,
have to be forced to provide, then no, I oppose that.
so you're fine with no police forces
No, I'm not fine with it.
if people
I think
don't
it's
support
bad
it.
if there's not one, but I think it's worse, I guess, if people are forced to provide it, because then that defeats the whole purpose of the police, which is to protect me from force. So there's that contradiction again, forcing me to be free, or forcing me in the name of freedom.
So, so why are you okay with the criminalization of theft? You're taking away someone else's freedom to steal your stuff.
Why am I okay with the criminal? That's a pseudo freedom. There is no freedom to steal. That's like the freedom to force. I don't think there is such a thing. There's no freedom to force other people.
There is under. What do you mean? If you can do it, then it's your freedom.
I don't think so. I don't think that's the right way to understand the concept of
Are you
freedom.
capable of that with no police force?
Are you capable of what?
You're capable of doing that if there's no police force to stop you?
To schmurder or steal?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're capable of doing that even if there is a police force. It's just that you're going to suffer consequences, more likely perhaps, or a different kind of consequences, like you'll be thrown in jail. Whereas if there are no police, then maybe you'll just get attacked by a friend of whoever you stole from or whoever you harmed, instead of by some third-party government agent.
So, how is that not just a more extreme form of the same limitations that are placed on you by regulations? Like the airlines need to take certain safety measures, so they don't have a right to be negligent in flying you around. What, just like they have a right to, like, under, they have a right to do that, you have a right to steal. What's the difference? It's just a more extreme form.
They have a right to be negligent. I don't know about that. I don't think.
If
I mean,
there's
I
no
think
regulations,
but there's a contract, and there's an understanding that if I get on a plane, I gave them money when I purchased the flight on the understanding that they're competent to fly me to my destination without the thing crashing. And if they don't fulfill that contract, like, I mean, if they hire monkeys as pilots, then they violated the contract, and there's no right to do that. There's no right to violate.
then when you say you're against regulations, what do you, when you say you're against regulation, what do you mean by that?
I'm against laws that initiate
Which kinds
force.
of regulations?
For example, minimum wage laws, they regulate people in that they are not free to decide what wages to work for or what wages to offer. The government is forcing people against their will to only accept employments at or above a certain wage level. Even if people voluntarily would like to work for a lesser amount, they're not free to do that. So I call that a regulation, because the government is forcing people against their will to act in a certain way.
Okay, and when the car companies and the plane companies make their planes and cars, they have to build them with certain safety regulations. They're being compelled to do that. You're fine with that, or that's a
No,
regulation? No,
I'm not fine with that. Like if they
those are not
require,
regulations.
if they
Oh,
require, if they force car manufacturers to have seat belts or airbags, I oppose that. I think the car companies should be able to decide whether it's in their interest to offer a car that has seat belts. I think most probably would decide, yeah, I'm probably going to sell more cars if I've got some safety features in my car like seat belts. But I don't think the government should force that on the car company or on the consumers.
so when there's a new safety feature and the consumer doesn't know about it yet, it shouldn't be implemented. It shouldn't be. The government shouldn't compel them to implement it, even though it might cost many lives. In the meantime, you're okay with those lives being taken away just because they have the right to do it. We can't compel them to put new safety features in.
I'm okay with freedom, so I'm not okay with.
That's what you're calling it.
I mean, and if you put it as I'm okay with lives being taken away, you might be, if you're trying to imply like I'm happy about this. No, that's certainly not true. Like I think, am I okay with people going to church? Well, yes and no. It depends what you mean by that. I think people should have a right to go to church. I don't think it's a good thing because I think religious teaching is very irrational. But I think they should be free to do it. So, am I okay with people absorbing all this irrational, mystical dogma and screwing up their minds? Am I okay with that? Well, what do you mean by okay? Legally, yeah, I'm okay with it. It doesn't mean morally I'm okay with it.
But you would be permissive of dangerous products being allowed to remain. Let's say we just had a new research. We found out that X chemical in children's toys causes causes cancer. You're gonna say the government cannot compel the companies to not put that material in the children's toys.
Well, that might
You're
be
gonna
okay
you're
to
gonna
have a
cost those children their lives.
no. That might be okay to have a law against because poisoning someone, which this might be a variant of, is a form of force. So cancer, that's a physical attack on someone's body. Um, that could be a form of force, and you can't coerce other people. Now cancer, that might be a trickier case because I don't think you can always draw a direct line from one particular action to some outcome. Like, does smoking one cigarette cause cancer? Maybe not. Does smoking 100 cigarettes a week cause cancer? I don't know. Maybe it does for some. For others, it doesn't. So I think cancer is a bit murky, and people can make. I think people should be able to make lifestyle choices, like what type of diet to eat. Maybe some types of diet do lead to cancer over many years, but if you can show some very immediate kind of connection between some toxin or some chemical in a child's toy and cancer, it's not just like the kind of connection between a certain kind of diet which might develop into cancer 20 or 30 years later. Then I think you could pass a law against it. It's more like a poison. Um, but then I wouldn't call it a regulation. It would be more like retaliatory force than initiating force. By the way, I don't have any other callers
So
here in the
in
guest lists, but I just want to let people know, if I don't know how long I'm going to stream today, but if anyone else wants to request up, you can do so. All right.
So if it's not an inevitability, then you're against it. So if there's a 2% uptick in cancers among children, the research has demonstrated that there's likely going to be a 2% uptick in cancers. Is that sufficient to warrant putting that in place?
I don't know. I don't
It's
have
not.
a
We don't know for sure. No individual. No individual.
you cut
Maybe
out.
though. So you're saying maybe this. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Okay, so the jury is out on that one. The jury is out on that one.
At least for
You
me,
might
I
be
haven't
in.
thought
You
through
might
like
be okay with that sort of.
2%. I don't know. I would have to think about that. I haven't reached a conclusion on exactly what the risk has to be in order to justify the government stepping in and using force.
Okay. Hold on. Let me make my. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I think maybe it'll be a little better now. All right. So let me think of another example where it's not it's not the product itself causing it, but it might not have the degree of protection. So what about we discover the certain sort of helmets that we're giving teenagers or children, and we know that the older technology is putting kids at risk for concussion or unaliving. You don't think the government can say we need to put this in place because it's a higher risk, like to the children? We know most likely there's going to be more concussions. Now they're not causing any concussions because they're not forcing the kids to play the sports, but we're going to make a lot more children safe if we use the better technology. You would put those teenagers at risk because you don't want to force a company to do something.
You say I'm putting them at risk. Like I'm. I mean, it's not up to me. I'm concerned you're trying to impose some responsibility on me, whereas I'm trying to leave people free to be responsible for themselves. So if I'm a parent, it's up to me. It's my responsibility to ensure my kid is safe and not getting harmed. It just
But
there's
there are
something
bad
like
parents.
I don't know, something about the framing of this is concerning to me. Like I'm okay with this or that. Um,
Well, you're permissive of it.
I mean, it might depend on the case. Like you said, the 2% cancer case. I'm not sure. I said in that case, I haven't worked out like an exact numerical thresholds at which it's okay to take a risk. Um, I don't have it worked out for every case on exactly where the line should be drawn. I'm trying to. I guess I have a general principle that people should be free to live their own lives as they choose, but figuring out exactly how to implement that in every little case, I don't have an answer to that. Sometimes philosophers of law, people who specialize in legal issues, need to figure these sorts of things out.
I mean, most philosophers of law are okay with imposing certain duties on. I mean, that's what negligence law is. It's based on duty. So you would just do away with negligence law, I guess.
No,
We have
I
duties to one another.
I think there are responsibilities. Like a parent has a responsibility to feed his child, and if she is negligent in that responsibility and doesn't feed the child, I think you could classify that as abuse, physical abuse, and there can be a law against that. I'm not against that. Or there might be certain safety standards at a restaurant, like if you are negligent about maybe cleaning. Let's say you work in a kitchen in the back of a restaurant and you never wash your dishes. I think that could be considered negligence. You're not being sufficiently responsible about cleanliness, and then your customer ends up getting sick. I think they could be sued, rightly so, for that, because there's an implicit understanding that certain standards are being met. Like you wash the dishes at least every once in a while. Otherwise, it's a physical threat. And so the government stepping in with a law there, I think, would be a retaliatory use of force, retaliating against the initiation of force via negligence of the person who's not washing his dishes and letting bacteria grow. I see somebody just requested to join and then disappeared.
However, you're imposing the duty to clean the dishes before any it's not retaliatory. You're having them do an action. And that's a regulation. So that seems to contradict your idea that regulations are bad. You seem to be fine with the state requiring the restaurants to live up to certain state safety standards. So I think that you're contradicting your regulations are bad viewpoint.
I don't see that as a regulation. Just I don't see. Well, to take another example, I don't think it's bad to have a law against stealing. I mean, because there's no freedom. There is no freedom to steal, and likewise, there's no freedom to physically harm your customers. For instance, by poisoning their food, or being negligent about washing dishes. Hold on a second. My AirPod is running low. I got to switch over to the other one.
Are you? I have some other examples. What about having laws that compel doctors to save people that are going to, pass away without their assistance? Are you in favor of that, or would you have them pass away?
Laws that could you say it again?
So there are laws that require doctors to help people regardless of whether they have insurance, and before they know they have insurance, the doctor still has to treat a person that is on their that passed out in the street or something. The ambulance can go get them and bring them in before they know whether they have insurance, and regardless of whether they have insurance, if someone is on the ground, someone brings them in and they have no idea whether they have insurance, the doctor can't say, no, I'm not going to treat them, and he didn't do anything to them.
I don't think there should be a law that requires doctors to treat people. So I think, I mean, if you pay for service and then then you have a right to be treated because you're just getting what you paid for. But if it's just some random person who wants your help, I don't think that person has a right to be treated.
So if he doesn't know whether you have insurance yet because you can't give it to him, you're laying, being near unalived, he can just say, well, I don't know if he has insurance, so I don't have to do this. That's the world you want to live in.
You're trying to do this framing again, which is making it sound bad. The world I want to live in is the world of freedom, not where people are coerced to support other people. So there's another kind of framing.
Okay. So if you pass out in the street, no one knows it's you. They don't have your insurance card. They take you to the hospital. The doctor doesn't know what's going on, but he knows you don't. He doesn't know if you have insurance. He has no way of knowing. Oh well, too bad. Let him go.
Well, you say that in a kind of indifferent tone of voice, which I don't think
Well, that's.
follows. I think
I
he
think
should
you're the
have the
one who's
right.
indifferent.
I don't think the doctor has a duty to treat the person. I think he has the right not to, but that doesn't mean he wouldn't. He might, out of benevolence, treat the
He
person,
might.
and I think he would have more benevolence is if his freedom is respected and he's not being treated as a slave doctor who is coerced to treat anyone who comes his way. I think there will be much more benevolence and voluntarily willingness to engage in acts of charity and kindness if
Oh,
people are not treated as slaves.
and what if he decides not to do it because the guy's black? You're okay
Well,
with that
then
too?
he's being irrational, and I'm not going to want to go to that doctor, and I'm going to boycott
Well,
him, give him bad reviews, and try to make him suffer some
you're gonna
consequences.
you're gonna boycott him on your deathbed.
And I'm going to tell everyone else about him, and do.
But you're near being unalived.
I'm just reading the. Sorry. Um, Hold on a second. I just want to look at the chat for a minute. Let's see. Do I still have a mod here? Oh, actually, I just. Oh yeah. I don't have any. I don't see any mods. So all my mods left. All right. Well, the chat isn't going very fast, so maybe I can keep an eye on it. But I might want to end the stream soon, anyways. All right. How about we do? We just go another minute or so, and then let's wrap this up.
Okay.
All right.
So you get unalived. You or the black man in the example or whoever gets unalived, and the recourse is their family after they've been unalived can not go to them when they didn't go to them anyway in the first place, or they can tell them they're bad, and it's after the.
Oh, you just cut out. But
So your recourse or your retaliation is after the fact, after this person's been unalived, he'll be boycotted. But the guy is still unalived. And you still need doctors because, doctors are a very finite resource. So you not like there's probably going to be still people who will pay him because we only have a small amount of doctors. So I don't think your boycotting is necessarily going to work. Let's say maybe he's a very skilled doctor. He's still going to be in need, but he can just go ahead and say, "Oh, I didn't help that guy." Whatever. Just because he didn't know he had insurance.
okay. Let me. I guess I'll try to reply to that, and then we'll
Okay.
just end it
Sure.
there.
Sure.
So if someone might encounter a tragic scenario because someone else is being evil, and maybe that's the kind of example you're picturing here.
Well, a doctor being that's a hard work. I mean, it's a lot of work he has to put into it. So,
Yeah, so he shouldn't be. Well, no one should be treated as a slave, and okay, let's just end it here, and maybe I'll say
okay.
something else after you disconnect.
Sure,
But
sure. I just think that the world that you're asking for is an inferior one to the one we already have in many ways. I think these regulations keep us safe, and I would not support a lot of the things that you're calling for. In
okay,
closing, thank you.
yep. Thanks for your call. Okay, and I think the world would actually be much better if we had the system that I advocate, which is why I advocate it. I think if you respect freedom, there's going to be much more progress, and that includes technological innovation in the field of medicine. And there will be far fewer tragic disaster scenarios if we had much more progress and innovation in the medical field, which you're less likely to get when there is coercion. And maybe I could talk more about that, but I'm feeling the need to either get a new caller or in the stream. We had a lot of viewers when Kay was on, and I'm wondering if there's anyone else like that we could get. So if someone has a large following, that definitely helps with my viewership. But I also don't know that I have energy for another call. I might need to call it a day here. Someone says, yep, just me. I can send an invite to Bree. Sure, though I don't think you want to argue with who I know. So Brobot has somebody in mind, but doesn't think I want to argue with that person. Why? Is it because they're uncivil? I do like to keep it civil here. No, they are civil and very polite. Oh, why do you think I wouldn't want to argue with them? Oh, they are far-right neo-national socialists? Okay. Yeah, maybe you're right. Some views I don't want to sanction. I did argue with a communist, but I think Nazis might be worse because their view is more race-based than, well, it's race-based. They think they are part of some superior Aryan race, whereas the communists, it's less perceptual. Like, it's not visual. You can just identify people as good or bad on the basis of their superficial appearance, like their race. It's more economic class to which someone belongs, which is at least a little more abstract. It's less perceptual and concrete bound. So, I mean, I think both are very bad, but I think communism might be at least slightly less bad. Oh, you say you know a couple of communists as well? All right, maybe next time. I think I'm not feeling up to it right now. One thing I'm interested to try is adjusting the position of my background, maybe lowering it a little bit, because on my ends, it looks like the words are being cut off at the top. Is that true for you as well? You say that's the TikTok game. You have to argue with extremists. Well, I'm not sure that's best for the long run. Maybe in the short run it will give me a lot of viewers, but in the long run, I think it might be a bad idea. Yes, though I get the point. Maybe just simply good list, drop the bad side. I don't think the problem is the width of it; it's the height of it. So it's not having good and bad. I think it's the stuff above the good and bad, which is getting a little cut off for me. I'm actually going to see if I can adjust the background right now. I'm going to create a new slide and then see if I can replace the current one with one that's a little bit lower. Let's see, save as. Maybe my head will end up covering some of the words at the bottom, but if I move my head every once in a while, then maybe people can still read it. See, this is what it looks like on my phone. I don't know if you can see this. But it's cut off at the top. My name and the number of likes I got, it covers up the words on the background. So I'm going to try to lower it a little bit. Okay. Now I just need to save it as a JPEG. Export. Okay. And add scene, that's what I need. Oh, actually, that's a little different. Add source, that's what I want. All right, I just added a source. And I'm going to move that down. Let's see. Oh, that was the wrong box. Oh, maybe I didn't even need to do that. Well, I'm looking on my... Okay, so now I can see more of the words. Let me move it down a bit more. That's more than I need. Oh, no, actually, that's pretty good. No, that's too low. See, there was this message that temporarily popped up. Okay. I don't know if that looks any better for you all, but I'll have to play around with this. And actually, there's different scenes. I'm kind of curious to try that out now. So instead of there's a full camera view. Right now it's the full camera view. There's also wide camera view and split view. I wonder how the split view looks. Oh, that's my actual background. So that's full camera. Oh, portrait, split view. All right, well, maybe I should play around with this later. But I don't have any other guests right now, so I thought now might be a good time to experiment. All right, so I think I'm going to end the stream now. But thanks everyone for being here. And if you know of any other guests who you think would help me get a large audience, I definitely appreciate it if you let me know or let them know, maybe invite them to join. I'm not sure what the best way to do it is, but I am trying to grow the channel here, as well as my YouTube channel. I posted my first TikTok, or my first main TikTok live stream on my YouTube channel, and I might post this one as well. This is my third major live stream, but I'm not sure when I'm going to do that. But if you go to Dan Norton 1 on YouTube, you'll be able to find them. All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming by today. Thanks for the gifts. Thanks for your participation. Thanks to the callers. And I'll see you next time. Not sure when the next time is going to be, but whenever that is, hope to see you again soon and have another good stream. All right. Bye, everyone.